My sister's husband roped me and I can't tell her why. 10 years ago, I was roped by my alcoholic brother-in-law. The effects on my mental health were very drastic. I attempted to take my life in the following months. I never told anybody, however. I kept it all to myself and did my best to keep my trauma sheltered and away from everyone. It took me 8 years to tell my husband, who I had been dating for 4 months when it happened. Once I told him about my trauma, it started explaining a lot of weird behaviors, such as panic attacks when going to visit my family and night terrors being the two biggest. So about a year ago, I told my parents everything that happened regarding my sister's husband. My father was fairly silent. My mother tried to be understanding but couldn't help herself on comments like, "Why didn't you tell us?" and making jokes about how messed up my childhood was when I said I had been in therapy for it. When I told them, I explained to my parents the difficulty I was having. I told them I need their support, and to tell me if he's going to be around when I'm visiting. I explained to them how it has impacted me from being around as often as I would like. My dad was quiet and my mom carried on about how that shouldn't slow me down from visiting them. Over the course of the last year, neither of my parents have even broached this topic since the day I told them. If my brother-in-law is around at a family gathering, my dad pays attention and is right by my side if he tries to talk to me. My mom gives him alcohol when he shows up already drunk and does things like set an extra place setting at family dinners just in case he shows up. It has been hurtful and I haven't exactly felt supported by my family. My relationship with my sister has also deteriorated, although we were never super close to begin with. She was a bit of a golden child and it has put a strain on our relationship as adults. So a few years ago, my mother announced to the family that she was officially giving me Thanksgiving to host. I was elated. However, since then it has been a battle and she tries to host it every year. She invited my brother-in-law each year too. I finally put my foot down this year and said I won't come. I tried to explain to her how hurt I am and that I want to be in my own safe place. I got emotional trying to say this and my mother told me not to cry and to stop being a baby. She had the nerve to tell me to let go of the past. I lost it and told her I was allowed to have emotions and she was going to listen to them even if they made her uncomfortable. She was not happy with what I had to say to her and started swinging back with unrelated issues. I hung up on her because the conversation was going nowhere good. After I got into the fight with my mom, I felt strangely empowered to confront my brother-in-law. So that's what I did. We talked. He tried to say he slightly remembered what he did to me but wasn't sure because he was blackout drunk. I gave him every single detail. I also reminded him that he was barely tipsy, and definitely conscious. I also told him I'm not looking to blow up my sister's life almost a decade later, but he needs to step up and be a better husband and father and also stop drinking. The next day my mom told my sister about the fight between my brother-in-law and I. The main point of the fight was me not feeling supported around the A who roped me. My sister doesn't know this part, so she thinks I'm arguing about hosting Thanksgiving just because I'm difficult. I got a long and nasty text from my sister for being rude to my mother. She carried on and called me a bad aunt for not being around my nephews enough and not spending more time with my family. I'm hurt. I screenshotted the text and sent it to my brother-in-law so he has to at least see what I'm going through because of him. So, I've been attempting to protect my sister by not telling her this secret. My sister's husband roped me and I can't tell her why. I decided I needed to tell my sister. So I called her and asked her not to interrupt me. She quietly listened as I told her what happened and began sobbing. The first words out of her mouth were that I will never have to see him again, he will never be welcome at mine or my parents' houses. She believed me 100%. She asked questions, including if he was drunk when it happened. She was even more appalled when she found out that he was almost fully sober. Then she also shared that brother-in-law was roped by an alcoholic aunt when he was younger. I joked that maybe getting roped was a family initiation on his side. She did not find it very funny, but at least I did. I own my trauma, and if anyone is going to make jokes about it, it will be me. Anyway, the conversation went on and I told her I called and confronted him a few days ago. She asked about our conversation and I told her everything. She responded by saying she doesn't allow him to drink in the house anymore because he gets aggressive even when slightly tipsy. I told her if ever there was a reason to be 100% sober, I thought this was a pretty damn good one. She then got angry. But not at me. She went on repeat a few times that she's my big sister and her job is to protect me. I could feel her internalizing a lot of pain. My brother-in-law wound up in the hospital yesterday due to a staph infection, so she told me she wants to go home and lay the smack down on him but can't do it in the hospital, so we'll wait for him to get discharged. I explained to her that I do love my family, but the panic attacks and night terrors keep me away so I can protect myself. She told me she's been very angry at me for years for not being around and knowing this changes things. She said had she known, I never would have had to be around him all these years. She kept telling me she wished I had told her sooner. I told her how I always thought I'd defend myself in that type of situation but for some reason froze. She acknowledged that everyone handles trauma differently and it isn't my fault. We then both acknowledged that we were raised to repress any emotions that weren't positive and I had ultimately handled this situation how I had been raised, alone and internalized. She then said I was a victim, I'm not responsible for how I handled this trauma when it happened, and none of this was my fault. I felt hurt and validated. She told me that she wished I had told her at the time. They didn't have any kids when this happened. She said she most likely would have divorced him. But she doesn't see divorce as an option now because of the kids. I explained that I didn't have the tools in my toolbox at the time and then that's what I've been working on. I told her until a year ago, I couldn't stand in an empty room and say what happened to me out loud or even write it on a piece of paper. She just sobbed. I told her I am very angry at my mother for telling half-truths and being so hurtful to me. She tried to make excuses for my mom telling her about the argument over the weekend. I told her how hurt I was at the most recent family gathering. My sister confirmed a week ahead of time that brother-in-law was working and wouldn't be there. We walked into my parents' house and he was there, drunk. I watched my mother give him at least 3 beers and laugh and joke with him. Neither of my parents gave me a heads up he was there. My sister understood and apologized. If talking to her made me realize anything for sure, it's that my parents are pretty messed up units. I'm going to text my sister this morning. Considering the way she handled it, I think reaching out and trying to heal our relationship will be a good move. I also don't want my parents to do what they did to me to her. When the dust settles some, I'm going to talk to my sister about all the unhealthy bullcrap from my parents. I think if we can stand up to their messed up behaviors together, everyone will be better off.